Howdy, howdy, folks. Moro here, free from the clutches of the state of Pennsylvania. I just wanted to throw something quick out there for Christmas just to show you all that I'm not dead. And what better to do than a Daedric Prince tier list, a classic. Now, you'll notice Athelia, that rascal, is not going to be one of our options. Why? Well, for one, I know barely anything about her, because I did not get to that part of Elder Scrolls Online, and even if I did, the parts and things I've read about her, she seems kind of cringe. So hopefully that doesn't upset anyone, that she's not on this list. And if it does, I really don't care that much. Sorry, I guess. Alright, starting. Of course, we have Azura. Easy S tier. Lady of Dawn and Dusk. While the Khajiit might call her Azura, with a little H there, in their creation story and how everyone relates to Azura and all the different pantheons, while that all may be different, I think we can all agree that her story within the Dunmeri pantheon is by far the coolest. As part of the original three gods that St. Veloth worshipped, and of course the reclamations in terms of like the Skyrim timeline. Azura is just sort of the goat. A little gold standard. Plus her symbols and her artifacts are kind of just pretty baller. Now she does have kind of a jealous streak to her, but I kind of like that about her, I like that. Alright, moving on. Boethiah, another S tier. I like Boethiah a lot. Not only just because I like Boethiah's artifacts, I think it's interesting that Boethiah is one of the few princes that actually does switch like how they appear, and I'm saying they because Boethiah has appeared as both man and woman, and that's what I mean when they say Boethiah doesn't really seem to have a fixed appearance. In Morrowind, Boethiah is actually a man, at least that's what they appear as on the statues and whatnot, and how they speak, but in Oblivion, I believe they are a woman. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll fact check myself here, and I know for a fact, in Skyrim, they're a woman again, so Boethiah doesn't seem to have a fixed gender, unlike Azura, who's always a woman, and, Vaermina always a woman, Nocturnal always a woman, and, Mehrunes Dagon's always a man, and Hermaeus Mora is just always a, pile of tentacles. Boethiah seems to flip around, which is kind of cool, makes it kind of neat. But what about Boethiah puts them in S tier? They're just cool. I mean, Golden Katana, Ebony Mail, the Tournament of the Ten Bloods, this is hardcore stuff. They're awesome, right? Who wouldn't want? I mean, maybe it sucks to be one of the worshipping practitioners of Boethiah, because you seem to be put into a lot of precarious situations that are very dangerous, but they're pretty hardcore, pretty cool. I like Boethiah. Now, Clavicus Vile. Kind of a B tier. Very low B tier, if I'm honest. I'm a big fan of merchant gods and, little crafty schemers and all that, but it kind of doesn't seem all that interesting. Outside of the fact that he has a dog, that for some reason a good chunk of his power is in, which also doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, at least when it comes to Daedric lore. What is Barbas? Genuine question in the comments. What is Barbas? Is Barbas part of Clavicus Vile? And that's why Barbas has power? And that's why Clavicus Vile is weaker when Barbas is separated from him? Is Barbas just another Daedra and Clavicus Vile and Barbas have just teamed up and done a fusion dance with each other? What is Barbas? I genuinely don't know. Because Barbas seems a lot chiller than main Clavicus Vile, but I don't know. I just genuinely don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments, what you think of Barbas and his relations to Clavicus Vile is. But let's get to actual Clavicus Vile. I don't really think the whole concept of a trickster, trading merchant type deity is all that interesting when it comes to a Daedra specifically. I like the idea of he tricks you and he doesn't really give you exactly what you want. I like that. But I guess it's just his presentation is not all that interesting. You don't really get a very strong Clavicus Vile presentation in any of the games. And maybe that's just how he's presented. It honestly might be. And maybe it's just because recently I did the ESO expansion where he's one of the main villains, and it's just not great. It's not great. But moving on, Hermaeus Mora. A tier. I like Hermaeus Mora a lot. And he used to be my favorite a long time ago, for any of you who knew me personally, back when I was in middle school. Hermaeus Mora, I used to be a diehard Hermaeus Mora, big fan. I was a massive nerd and he was the book guy. So, and it was just kind of neat to have this Daedric prince who is not a person. He's just a mass of tentacles and claws and whatnot. I'm not actually a big fan of the direction they sort of went with him in Skyrim, I just don't really like the aesthetic. It's not the lore I have a problem with, although I don't really like the whole Dragonborn Mirak lore, with Hermaeus Mora. It's just the aesthetic. It's just so black, inky greens. It's just kind of meh. I think you really could have done more with Hermaeus Mora. But the concept is still really cool. And I want more Hermaeus Mora lore. And I want to see more on his interactions with the Skull, because clearly there's more to that. And I find it very interesting. Now, Hircine, speaking of interactions with the Skull, he's also very interesting. I think he is maybe one of the higher Bs. Maybe I'll change my mind and put him at the low A in the future of this video. But for right now, he'll be a high B, okay? I like him. I like Hunter Gods. I think they're a classic. You have to have a Hunter God somewhere. And I like whenever we interact with Hircine, he's not like a mean dude. He's actually pretty chill. He's a pretty nice guy. He just loves to hunt things. And he's got like a code that he sticks to, an ethic he sticks to. Like when we fight him in Morrowind, you choose one of his aspects. You don't fight like Hircine at full strength. You get to choose like one of his aspects. You know, it wouldn't be fair if you had to fight like a whole Daedric Prince. That wouldn't be cool. Or like when we interact with him in Skyrim, you know, you have to survive the hunt, you know, or he makes a deal with you for like hunt Sindring, I think his name is, the werewolf guy. He's willing to make deals with mortals, and unlike Clavicus Vile, he actually keeps his end of the deal. So I think that's pretty neat. And from what I've heard, at least what the companions say, the ones that like being werewolves, his afterlife is actually pretty chill. You hunt for the rest of eternity, and you're not the hunted, you are the hunter, which, I mean, if you worship Hircine, that's what you want anyway. Alright, so Jyggalag. I also used to be a big Jyggalag simp when I was in middle school, just because the aesthetic goes hard. But in my adult life, I think he's probably like a middle B. And honestly, a lot of that is probably just aesthetic. And his name is just really cool. I think Jyggalag, as a name, goes hard. Pretty dang cool. His lore is also really cool. You know what? Screw it. He's going up to low A. I like him. Okay, so let's talk about what Jyggalag is. I really like his lore, that he's like this ancient prince that sort of gets scrubbed from the history books by the other princes, you know, because he was so powerful that, you know, he started conquering the other realms, and they had to like beat him by cursing him to turn into the thing he hates the most, which is like chaos, because he's the Prince of Order, right? So they turn him into Sheogorath, because they can't kill him. You can't kill a Daedra, because, you know, they just regenerate eventually. So they have to like flip him around into the thing he hates the most with a curse when they turn him into Sheogorath. I like that. It's a really cool concept. And like I said, the aesthetic goes hard. So Jyggalag, I'll put him in low A. Malacath, this is for our orc lovers, our greenskins. Honestly, regular Malacath, honestly, is kind of eh. But because I'm a big Trinimac lover, and I like the concept that Malacath is like a corrupted form of Trinimac, I will put him in middle B. I like Malacath, like the Code of Malacath, the idea that he's got a weird sense of honor, a weird code of ethics, but he does actually stick true to it. You don't have to worry about him betraying you or whatnot. As long as you stick to the code that he gives you, he will actually keep his word with you. It might seem strange to like an outsider's perspective, someone who's not like raised in like an orc stronghold, but he's actually pretty good for his word. I think a lot of that comes from his maybe previous life as Trinimac, even if it's been corrupted now into Malacath. All right, Mehrunes Dagon. Honestly, C tier. And the parts of Mehrunes Dagon that I do like are like the deep lore, where he's actually like not this super evil Daedric prince of destruction and whatnot, which he is. And that's why he's in C tier, because I think that's lame. It's like basic. But the parts of him that I like, that keep him out of the bottom tier, that raise him up a little bit, is the idea that he's actually this Daedric prince of revolutions and hope and change, right? The idea that he's not actually here to destroy everything, he's just here to make sure that things don't become stagnant, that they don't stay the same for too long, you know? He's there to make sure that things are constantly adapting and changing into something new, right? That's the only thing that makes him interesting in the slightest, but that's not how he's actually portrayed most of the time in the games. Like, certainly not Oblivion. He appears as basically just like the devil, especially with like the fiery imagery of the Deadlands. Yeah, but you know, I like to think of like the background lore, which is written, even if it's not explicitly said, that he's actually got a little bit of interesting lore to him, that he's just there to make sure that things don't become too stable. He's here to change things up, you know? All right, Mephala, web spinner. I like Mephala a little bit at least, but I'll put her in C tier, honestly, because maybe it's just I have to imagine a world, and I'm looking at this. Maybe this is my like dark elf sympathies making me want to raise her higher. But like of the 3 reclamations, right, the 3 Daedra that traditionally the Dunmer would worship, 2 of them are just awesome, and then Mephala is just like a monster, right? And maybe it's just because you can like trust the honesty of an Azura worshiper. You can trust the honesty of a Boethiah worshiper, even if they'd be like bloodthirsty, just the same as a Mephala worshiper. At least they'd stab you in the front most of the time. Because I know Boethiah worshippers would stab you in the back. I know that. But Mephala worshippers, it's the whole concept of unraveling the web. It's the web spinner, right? They create plots for the reason of creating plots. They're making plots to make plots. That's the whole point. It seems unnecessary to me. The political guile aspect of this. But it just seems it makes me a little nervous. I think I'd make a very poor house politics player in Morrowind. I'll put it that way. I would not have a very good relationship with Mephala, and I believe that the Morag Tong would probably get to me sooner or later, and probably sooner. Meridia, as memed on as Meridia is, especially in Skyrim, I do think she's B tier. I like Meridia a lot. I like the idea of this Daedra, who are usually considered like the evil gods of the Elder Scrolls series, who's actually like relatively good, at least in terms of like stereotypical fantasy elements. Like she's an undead hater and all that. Now she's got her bad qualities to her, but like on the scales, right, she balances out more on the good side. And like I also like the lore, like she used to be a Magna Gi, people that started out helping the process of creating the world that we see around us in the Elder Scrolls, but then changed her mind. I like that whole concept. She's a very interesting character, and I think she adds a lot to the Daedric pantheon. All right, Molag Bal. Molag Bal is D tier, D for domination. I genuinely cannot fathom, outside of someone just being pure evil, why someone would worship Molag Bal in the Elder Scrolls. Genuinely. Like, all the people that we see worshiping Molag Bal in the games are just bad people. And maybe that seems reductive, but maybe someone in the comments can prove me wrong. Maybe you can link me to a UESP page, but I genuinely cannot imagine or even remember seeing or hearing or reading about a Molag Bal incident or Molag Bal character who has not been, if we imagine like a sliding scale of evil to good, at least somewhat on the bad side. Like all of them are on that bad side. It's like, what does he bring to society, to Tamriel, that is not just evil? So, Molag Bal, I can see why he's part of the House of Troubles. That's all I'm saying, Namira's gross, but I like her concept. She's a C tier. I like the idea of having a deity that is just like the outcast, the shunned, the nasty, the reviled. It's good. It's an interesting concept, but I don't think she's really built on a lot. Her lore is kind of sparse. And not to say that there's none, there certainly is a good amount, but in terms of all of the Daedric princes, she certainly has not a lot. Nocturnal. Big Bazonga Nocturnal, they certainly redesigned her. She's an A tier. She's had some interesting lore and conceptual redesigns over the past few years, some of which I'm not big fans of. I don't know if any of you in the comments have played the Elder Scrolls Online questlines that sort of recontextualize Nocturnal as being something called like an Daedra, which is like this whole concept of she's like one of the most powerful Daedras of all time, which just seems weird to me. I don't know why the Daedric Prince of Knights and Thievery would be the most powerful Daedric Prince. It just seems a little odd. Maybe, I guess. But let's talk about the normal Nocturnal lore, like mainline series Nocturnal. I like her. She's very interesting. I like the concept of just having a thief god who, there's the whole meme that she constantly gets her stuff stolen, and that's very funny because she's the thief god. I like the concept that she allows her stuff to be stolen as like a test for future thieves, and then also likes to set up like re-thieving tests. Like she gets her stuff stolen and then has other thieves steal it back. I like the whole, because she just wants stuff stolen. I think that's an interesting like play on it. Obviously if she didn't want her stuff stolen, she's a Daedric prince, she could just not have her stuff stolen. I think we're looking too deep into this if you say like, oh, it's so dumb she can't prevent her stuff from being stolen even though that's her thing. Obviously she's setting it up to be stolen on purpose. I think that's the way we should be looking at this. Like her cowl or her skeleton key, right? She's letting it be stolen on purpose. All right, Peryite. Peryite is another favorite of mine purely because I'm a contrarian and I like when things that don't get enough love start getting love. But if I have to look at this from an objective with an asterisk because you can't remove all bias, I think he's like a middle B tier. I like the idea, which I say a lot, I notice. That is a catchphrase of mine. I like the idea. of a Daedric prince who's sort of just like a bureaucrat, a middle manager. He handles like the lower end tasks that none of the other Daedra wanted to do. Like he handles the diseases, the little middle management stuff. I like that. And he's just a little dragon dude, you know? Now, his like main artifact that you get when you do his quests, at least in Oblivion and Skyrim, is Spellbreaker. Don't really know what that has to do with him, like in terms of a concept, but it's a great artifact. You get it in Morrowind just for finding it, but in Oblivion and Skyrim, you get it from him, so I don't really see the connection as a Peryite artifact, but it's a banger artifact, and Peryite's a pretty cool dude. He's a nice guy. Sanguine. Now, Sanguine gets memed on a lot because he's a pretty fun guy, pretty chill guy to hang out with, but in reality, I think he's kind of a B tier as well, and honestly, I'm going to put him lower than Peryite, because he's kind of, I'm not going to say like a stereotype, but he's kind of, maybe I would say stereotype, because he's just the drunk guy, the drunk god, which is kind of a thing in a lot of pantheons, even in the real world. But like, what does he do? He's the party god, he's a party guy. And what are his goals as a deity besides partying, right? Does he makes other people party and have fun? Cool, I guess. And I like his quests, and that's why I'm putting him in B. I can see, and I can also functionally see why people would want to worship him, because like maybe they want to have a good time, but like, he's not that interesting. The way he influences the world and impacts the world is just not that interesting. He's just a party god. Sheogorath. Maybe controversial, maybe not. I think he is A tier, but below Jyggalag. Maybe controversial, because I know a lot of people love him, and maybe they put him in S, but I don't think he's worthy of S tier. I really, really like interacting with him. I don't really like the direction Bethesda seems to be going with him. I think Oblivion Sheogorath was probably the best we're going to get, even though there's a lot of things in Oblivion's, like Shearing Isles DLC for Sheogorath that I just don't like. It had a little bit too much meme for me, but the problem was Skyrim took it even further. And if any of you have played Elder Scrolls Online, the main quest for that has a significant amount of Sheogorath content in it, if you do like the Mages Guild path for it. And they're going like the similar direction as Skyrim. So I'm sure when we finally do get Elder Scrolls 6, there's going to be Sheogorath content in that, and it's probably going to be even more memey, dank memes with Sheogorath. And I'm just disappointed that that's the direction they seem to be wanting to take this character, when I really like the idea of like a genuinely insane, you never know how you're going to interact with him deity. That seems very interesting. And it seems like they just want to double down on like the funny haha, ooh, XD rar random things that he seems to be saying, instead of like, oh, he's genuinely terrifying. He could do anything. At least that's my interpretation. I'm curious to see what you guys think about Sheogorath. Maybe you think I'm dumb for not putting him in S. Let me know. All right, Vaermina. This is the Nightmare one, Skull of Corruption one. Very similar in terms of why I'm going to put Vaermina here as to why she's getting put here. I think she's above Vaermina. I think she's a C tier, mostly because, her influence directly on the world, and also why would anyone worship her, is just like she's a nightmare god. She influences people through their dreams. She just seems, maybe I'm out of touch here. But when it comes to deities, I think of like, what makes them interesting? Why would I want to worship this person? What are our interactions with this person like? And Vaermina, she doesn't have a lot of influence. Her aspects are like nightmares, not even all dreams, but nightmares specifically. So something people don't even enjoy. And yeah, that's a C tier. Like, not saying she's not cool. I like Vaermina's concept. I like her artifact. Skull of Corruption's a cool artifact. And I like her quests in Skyrim. But, C tier. Interested to see what y'all think of that. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. This will probably come out on that day. So interested to see what you guys all think. I'll probably still be posting a lot less than I used to, just because I work a very intense job. So, it was nice to be back for this little bit though. Like, comment, and subscribe. You obviously made it this far. So, Moro out.